Welcome to the first of the Center for Media Literacy's webinar series, Voices of Media Literacy, generously sponsored by the Hugh Morenz Foundation for Media Literacy. I'm Monica Hanley, an associate at the Center for Media Literacy, here with my fellow associate, Michelle Johnson. And with us today is Justin Kings, head of the European Broadcasting Union Academy, with over 30 years of experience in the media industry, working for Capital Radio in London, followed by BBC London, as well as a media consultant, among many other roles. The European Broadcasting Union Academy includes a School of AI, which features training for journalists on AI in the newsroom, open source training, AI ethics, and so much more. And with that very short and quick introduction, I'll turn it over to you, Justin.
Well, thank you, Monica, and Michelle as well. Thank you for the invitation to come and share some thoughts with you today, which I'm looking forward to. Let me share my screen for you. So as Monica said there, I do work for the European Broadcasting Union, the EBU. So just to tell you just a little bit more about what the EBU Academy is about. So we are part of the European Broadcasting Union. So it's the world's leading alliance of public service media. So we have almost 70 members representing over 110 organizations in 56 countries. I think I've got my numbers right. Now, if you're watching this in the US, you'll be interested to know that we have a bunch of associate members as well. And in the United States, these are American Public Media, CBS, ABC, NBC, NPR, and the WFMT radio network. So that's the European Broadcasting Union, and the Academy provides learning and development for our members and for other media professionals as well. And as Monica said, in March 2024, we launched the EBU Academy School of AI, which for us was important because it responds to a really important strategic priority for our members around artificial intelligence. And our mission at the moment is twofold. It's to support the AI literacy of those people working in public service media, and also to upskill. And it's a really incredible project, actually, because AI will affect everybody in time. We're trying to help as many people as possible understand it with this constantly evolving curriculum of learning events and training programs. We've had since its first 6 months, we've had hundreds of people come through and learn with us. So just to give you a bit more of a flavor on what we do and sort of the range of what we do, I've put on the screen there sort of a screen grab from our website, and 4 courses aimed at 4 very different groups of media professionals. How to make AI your creative superpower, which for me is one of the best training names you could have. I think I love that training name. This was a co-creation with the Finnish public media. It's called YLE. And you know, as you would guess from the title, this is for people working in content, producers, creatives, that sort of people. Then we have how to generate code faster. So for developers and for coders. Scenario planning, okay, so trying to look into the future and how AI will change and hopefully enhance our futures. And then the 4th course on the screen here is AI for personalization and recommendation. So this is another collaboration. Actually, internally within our organization, we're really lucky to have a brilliant technology and innovation department that has already created a number of AI tools for our members to use. And here we invited content leaders and developers to come together to work on and learn about personalization and recommendation. So just to give you a flavor of what we do, I think Monica mentioned this one, a journalist's guide to using AI in the newsroom, covering topics ranging from building AI into a newsroom workflow to combating misinformation and disinformation, And also just ensuring that you have a good, solid understanding of AI as a journalist, because when we're thinking about media literacy, obviously the role of journalists and more broadly the role of public media is absolutely critical. And for me, the two are inextricably connected. So as it says on the screen here, the AI literacy of those working in public media, including journalists, is essential to ensure the AI literacy of audiences. We need journalists who have a really good balanced understanding of AI, sharing their knowledge with audiences. Now, if you're interested in this subject, particularly around the role of AI in journalism, here's a report that I can recommend to you. So as we record today, this is only a few weeks old. Trusted Journalism in the Age of Generative AI. And I've put the URL on the screen where you can download this report for free. And it has an excellent section of practical advice for reporters on covering AI to ensure that they do this, as I say, in a balanced and robust way to help audiences understand artificial intelligence. And in terms of the reporting of AI in the media, there are some interesting thoughts, I think, in the report. So just to share with you two quotes from Smart and Informed People. Anne Lagerkrantz, Deputy Director General and Head of the AI Trust Council at the Swedish television media SVT. So Anne says we need to talk more about how humans interact with change. For example, how they deal with risks in the age of AI. Will there be an expectation that AI could create a risk-free life? So Anne here sort of advocating a deeper sort of debate around artificial intelligence. And I suppose, you know, the idea of maybe that there could be an over-reliance of AI in our lives in the future. So I think that's really interesting. And this too from David Caswell, an AI consultant. It is more than just reporting about it, he says. It's about taking an immersive approach, I suppose. So talking about BBC educational programs for school children, developing a curriculum around large language models, and to learn how to learn with them. What are the best practices for education in an AI environment? And I think personally, you know, AI could lead to a revolution in engaging children with education. Just to share with you a very quick anecdote that one of my faculty members told me about the other day. He has, I think it's an 8 and a 10-year-old he has as children, and they were in the room next door and he could hear them talking. And they seemed to be talking to a man, and she could expect he was on alert at this point, wondering who this strange man might be who suddenly appeared in the room next door. He walked in, the kids were sitting around the computer. They're actually having a conversation with Henry VIII because they were using an artificial intelligence tool through their school, which brought history to life, enabled them to learn about Henry VIII by having a conversation with an AI generated Henry VIII. So some really interesting creative uses of AI to help engage young people with education. The man you can see on the screen now is the Deputy Director General and Director of Media at EBU, a guy called Jean-Philippe de Tondeur, who wrote this really good blog piece. So again, some recommended reading here. If you Google the title or use the URL on the screen, you'll be able to find it. So navigating the digital frontier, the impact of AI on media literacy. And what Jean-Philippe does is he categorizes the impact in sort of two categories: the good, empowering media literacy, and the bad, challenges to media literacy. And of course, in a lot of ways, these are two sides to one coin, aren't they? So, you know, when we're talking about deep fakes and manipulation, that being one of the challenges to media literacy, on the flip side, AI can fight AI, that we already have tools that we're using. We have a newsroom at the EBU, the Eurovision newsroom, and we have a unit dedicated, full of experts who use AI tools and other digital forensic tools to be able to identify deep fakes, for example. So it's two sides of the same coin. Efficient information analysis. So here we're talking about how AI can analyze large amounts of data and quickly, which is really good for automated fact checking. It's not perfect, as a tool, but it's very, very good. Content recommendations. So there's a lot of talk about and concerns about recommendation systems and algorithms serving us up only the views that reinforce our own views and creating the filter bubbles. It's become a bit of a mainstream term now. But on the flip side, actually, AI can serve up a variety of new views that maybe are different to the ones that you usually consume, that might challenge you or might provoke you or might inform you or might change your mind. And then the final one, just to highlight here, because I would encourage you to read the blog piece, just in the bad category, the over reliance on AI. And I think this is really important. And thinking about AI, artificial intelligence, serving a number of tools that we as humans can use, not replacing humans. As I hope we go on to discuss in a bit, I think critical thinking from our point of view as human beings is more important than ever in the era of AI. So will AI take over? We need of course, humans are absolutely critical to be able to manage, use AI responsibly and effectively, so we get more enriching public service media content, and hopefully all other areas of our lives are enriched as well. I talked about critical thinking. So of course it's important that we all develop critical thinking in as regards to AI. What you can see on the screen here is a snapshot piece of research from a number of European countries carried out in May 2023 that showed more than a quarter of those questioned aren't sure if they interact with AI generated content. So 1 in 4 people just not sure whether the content that they see is generated by AI or not. And transparency on the part of the content creator, whether that's a media organization or an individual, is critical at this point, as we all learn what's AI generated and what's real. I suppose what is reassuring in the same piece of research, more than half of those questioned are concerned that AI can be used negatively. It could be used potentially for unethical purposes. For me, a balanced view is required here. There are opportunities and there are risks and threats, and we need to take a balanced view to really understand AI, and that's at the heart for me of AI literacy. As I said, at the EBU, I think we are upbeat about AI, and there are already some examples actually of how public service media is using artificial intelligence in trials and experiments. So I want to show you a couple of videos and tell you about a couple of examples here before we open our conversation. So this is from RTVE in Spain, and I personally find this totally inspiring. So this is a trial at the moment. So this hasn't been released to the audience, but it is using AI to take news content that's already been created and to make a new version of it that makes news accessible to people that may have learning difficulties. So taking what is sometimes a complicated story and reconstructing it, and breaking it down and retelling it in a simpler way so this group of people can access news content. So I'm going to show you the before and after, just to give you an idea of what this does, okay? So here is the original piece of news content.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Muy buenas tardes. Récord de solicitudes para votar por correo este 23J. Lo han pedido 2.300.000 votantes. Son más del doble que en las generales de noviembre de 2019. Y mañana acaba el plazo para solicitarlo.
Que he venido a solicitarlo ahora, o sea, a ultimísima hora.
Me ha llegado hoy, lo he traído hoy.
He estado esperando como una hora aquí para poder votar.
185 y está el 184. Espero que sea llegar y besar el santo.
Mucho ajetreo, ya lo ven estos días en las oficinas de correos, que reforzó la plantilla con casi 20.000 contrataciones. Los sindicatos reclaman más para poder atender, dicen, la avalancha de solicitudes. El 20 de julio es la fecha límite para depositar el voto.
Okay, so there's a lot of information in there to take in. Here is the story retold. You'll see it's being retold by an AI-generated avatar, and I think you can quite clearly see the difference. Same story, but a different telling of that story.
Buenas tardes. Mucha gente ha pedido votar por correo para el 23 de julio. Son 2,3 millones de personas. Esto es más que antes. Si aún quieres pedirlo, mañana es el último día. Hay muchas personas en las oficinas de correos. Si quieres enviar tu voto, debes hacerlo antes del 20 de julio.
Okay, so I think some great work being done by our colleagues, RTVE in Spain. And just to share with you a few more examples. So again, an experiment at the BBC in the UK. This one's called Tell Me More. So it's trialing an AI-powered tool that allows the audience to zone in on a particular piece of information. And let's say they don't quite understand a particular term or what an organization does or who a person is. They're able to focus in on that. And as the name suggests, the idea is to learn more about that particular term or organization or whatever it might be. So, you know, you might be reading a story about Ukraine. NATO is mentioned a lot, and you're not quite sure. I hear NATO all the time. But what actually does NATO do? Well, you would be able to click and you would be able to learn more about NATO there. NRK is the Norwegian public media. So what they're doing is using AI to use news content that already exists on their website and then auto-generate short news summaries for young audiences. Their research shows that young people want bite-sized news, sort of the headlines, and this is now created automatically by AI, checked by human journalists before it's published. Really, really important to point that out. But AI is really doing the hard work there in taking what's already created by their journalists, transforming it into a version that would appeal to young people. As I say, then it's being checked and then shared. So the team of people at the EBU's newsroom, the Eurovision newsroom, that are experts in fact checking are called, their team's called the Social Newswire. Now they're working with me at the EBU Academy to offer training to our members around how to verify or debunk content that you see online, and they use AI tools to do that work. But one of the other things they're training is how to tell the stories of that work. And I think this falls squarely into sort of the media literacy pool, helping audiences understand the work that's being done to, and sometimes quite painstaking work to figure out whether something is what it claims to be. So building narratives around fact-checking using AI and other tools. And then the final example I want to show you, and I've got another quick video, is a project called A European Perspective. And again, I think this one is really inspiring. So A European Perspective takes brilliant public service media content, journalism, created by human journalists, but AI takes the content, translates it into other languages, and then shares it to a wide European audience. So I won't say any more at the moment. I'll show you the video and then maybe just speak a little bit more about it off the back.
Our livelihoods and national economies are being convulsed by huge events and forces that are redefining the world as we know it. COVID-19, Russia's war in Ukraine, and the climate crisis. So how can we help our audiences to make sense of it all? A European perspective gives citizens a window into the issues affecting Europe, locally and globally. It's anchored in trusted content and collaborative technology. This initiative is a unique collaboration driven by public service organisations, harnessing the power of AI while keeping public service journalists at the heart of decision-making. Working together in a decentralised, networked newsroom, journalists are unlocking diverse, cross-cultural perspectives and exploring solutions to pan-European challenges. Their work is supported by EBU's Eurovox tool that translates news articles into multiple languages, and stories that your audiences might be interested in are suggested by our AI-assisted content recommendation, Peach. Journalists always ensure transparency and quality of the outputs of the AI-assisted work. The result? Stories that matter from across the continent, in your language, reaching citizens beyond national borders on trusted news websites. Audience surveys confirm that 90% of respondents are interested in reading news from a European perspective. And with a potential audience of 245 million internet users in the participating countries, the project has the prospect of having huge impact and reach. The network is expanding fast. Currently, 20 public service organisations in 17 countries are involved, all keen for their journalism to benefit audiences across Europe and for their brands to be visible beyond their borders. The project will continue to evolve as we amplify the value of the work carried out by our journalists, going beyond language barriers and bringing other perspectives to social media platforms too. Join us if you'd like to support innovation and give your audience a European perspective.
Okay, so you've got dozens of brilliant public service media journalists, 20 organizations, all creating stories, sharing them in a pool, and then AI is deciding which of these stories work for different countries, for different audiences. So that's where Peach, the recommendation tool, comes in. And then Eurovox translates into a myriad of different European languages. So you have technology, AI technology, driving a Europe-wide news service coming out of these, as the video said, trusted news organizations. And if you want to know more about a European perspective, you can see the web address at the top of the screen. There's a lot more on their website. And a few other links here. So EBU has an AI page, which is packed with resources. If you are interested in the role that public media has in the age of AI and its contribution to media literacy, then please have an explore there. There is the Academy website with the School of AI, where you can see the growing selection of courses we have and our associated LinkedIn page. And I've put my email address on there too. So, I mean, if there's anything I've talked about that you're particularly interested in, then please feel free to contact me. And there's just a few thoughts to start us off.
Great. Thank you so much. That was a lot of information that I hope was very useful. I know it was useful to us as well. AI is something that is constantly changing, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges from my perspective in how do we keep up with all of these challenges? How can we say, yes, we're going to use AI or embrace AI, and yet we have to keep up with these quick changes and developments. But I guess from your perspective, though, we talked about a lot of positives that you saw with AI, especially in the media industry. What are some challenges maybe that you see with AI, or journalists using AI, or the public embracing AI?
Yeah, you probably mentioned a key challenge there, actually, keeping up with everything. And that's why for the project that I'm involved with, School of AI, has collaboration at the absolute center of it. And we're in this privileged position, this sort of helicopter view of public media, not just in Europe, but around the world. So we're able to identify emerging best practice and brilliant new experiments and examples, and through our own technology team, new tools and that sort of thing. But apart from the speed and keeping up with that speed being a challenge, I think the other challenge is around trust, actually, and particularly for public media, where public media's relationship with audiences is absolutely built on trust and reliability. And so anything associated with the use of AI that may put at risk this trust is a serious challenge, I think. What it means is that public service media organizations, EBU members are proceeding very carefully and thoughtfully with their work in artificial intelligence. In my presentation, you're right, there was a lot of information, a lot of different examples, but this is all work that's being done with great care and by professionals who really do understand the risks here and what's at stake. And what's at stake is that trust, that absolutely vital trust. What EBU did was it gathered the earliest strategies from public media on AI, and you could see themes. And one of the strong themes was around decisions being taken with the audiences, the public at the heart of the decisions that were being taken. So, media asking, why are we using this AI tool? What's in it for the audience? What are the benefits for the audience here? Is it about more investigative data and original journalism? Is it about new, creative content like we may never have seen before to engage audiences impactfully? Are we going to surprise audiences in some way? What's in it for the audience? So audiences first, technology second. And alongside all of this, a lot of thought around the ethics of using AI in content creation and all the other elements of what public media do. And for me, alongside trust, a really important word which I mentioned during the presentation is transparency. So, where we are using, or where our members, public media, are using AI, being transparent about it. And I think there is a lot that we can be sharing with our audiences. There's a lot public media can be sharing with audiences to help them better understand why we're using AI and how we're using AI. So there's a lot at stake there in terms of trust, but public media are acting in a way to ensure that it is absolutely protected in its use of AI.
I have a question about transparency. What kind of techniques are being used to be transparent? What do people look for?
I think a number of things, Michelle. So first of all, like I said, just transparency when there is generative AI content. When there's content that's been created by AI, ensuring that there is very clearly a label which indicates as such. And then I think, as departments within public media start to experiment with AI, ensuring that the audience feel part of that. So, not keeping experiments behind closed doors, writing about them, sharing with the audience what worked, what didn't work, and asking the audience, what did you think? So, opening up a conversation with the audience about AI. So they're starting to understand why it's something that, a public media organization could potentially benefit from. Also understand the sorts of risks that we're concerned about. And, asking for their views and for their thoughts and taking those into account. So for me, they're some of the aspects of transparency, being very open about about this, and sort of welcoming, bringing in the audience along with teams as they start to work with AI.
Well, that's a great point. And seeing how different outlets are being transparent or choosing to be transparent, or even schools and other organizations where they say AI is a thing, it's not going away, we're not going to shun it, but we do have to figure out how to strike that balance of benefits. How does it benefit us? How does it benefit the people that we're making something for, whether that's teachers or journalists? And as a journalist myself, a lot of the conversation is about how AI makes our lives easier, how we can present things faster, how we can create things faster. And very little is being done to talk about how it benefits the audience. And I think that's such a great point to bring up, is an audience isn't going to be receptive to something that doesn't benefit them. If all they see is, kind of clunky, quickly written, dry information, they're going to kind of veer away from it. So that balance, I think, is very necessary for sure.
Yeah. I agree with you. And just to share another anecdote, which for me was really powerful. I had the privilege of doing a session like this, but actually I was the interviewer, not the interviewee. And I was speaking to somebody called Uli Koppen. So Uli is head of AI innovation for the Bavarian public media, so Bayerischer Rundfunk, BR. Very smart person with a great experimental spirit, very inspiring. And I concluded our interview by asking, at the time, what I thought was quite a nasty question. I hope you don't have any nasty questions like this to come for me. But I ended by saying, Uli, if you could put a sign above every office door at Bayerischer Rundfunk to inspire people about using AI, what would it be? So that's a pretty nasty question, isn't it? But Uli answered without even a beat, of having to think about it. She answered instantly. And she said that, that's easy. Do better journalism. And it's just your point, Monica. These are tools that should help journalists, create better content for audiences, new investigations that we couldn't have done before, or more investigations, because we can turn around information much quicker. So yeah, I'm a big believer in what our members talk about, which is audiences first.
But in terms of accountability, so that's something that we talk about when we talk about ethics and who's responsible for AI generated information. Let's say if it's wrong, if it incites violence, if it harms people in some way, who's responsible for that? If a platform or a news organization releases AI generated content that does some sort of public harm or is accidentally misinformation or something like that, who's responsible for that? I know there's no real answer right now because the legal sector takes a while to catch up with things, but I mean, in your opinion, who's responsible for this kind of content?
Well, I don't see the situation, Monica, as any different to when and I don't know how many years ago it is now, it's at least a decade ago, I suppose, we started seeing eyewitness news on social media, right? Because we had similar kinds of conversations then 10 years ago. And I think now we all accept, particularly those of us that work in journalism, working media, we all accept that information that comes via the public from social media platforms needs to be checked and to be verified before it's then shared with our audiences. And I think the situation we're in right now with AI is no different, where we now have, let's say we're doing some, a journalist is using ChatGPT to do some research, for example, then that journalist, needs to be aware that the same sort of rigorous checks and an assessment of whether the information they're receiving is fair and balanced, whether there's any bias in there. They should be imposing exactly the same sort of rigorous standards of journalism that adheres to, in the area of media that I work in, public media, to that content that they receive from a social media network. Again, thinking about AI tools as just that, also tools or potentially sources of information. They are not guaranteed to be 100% accurate in terms of a journalistic source. You need to adhere the same rigorous standards and fact checks to content that you might gain from artificial intelligence as you would to any other source that comes into the newsroom.
That's a great point, because as we know, sometimes content on social media is now also generated by AI. So there's a sort of double layers of checking.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but as we sit and record this in July 2024, increasingly I'm seeing, and because I'm so close to AI as a topic in my work, I can identify the images that are appearing in my social media feed that are generated by AI, by non-media people, and they're getting traction because they're great images, so they're being liked and shared, and so more and more people are seeing them, but they're not marked as generated by AI. And this is the area in which I think there's absolutely some work to be done. I don't have a huge amount of knowledge in terms of the strategies of social media networks. I know at least one now does give that prompt where the algorithm suspects something is artificially generated, and it gives a prompt to the user to actually mark that, make it clear. I think clearly that's really, really important.
Yes, for sure. I mean, we still need humans. I know there's every time, and I forget the official name of it. It was named after a person. I forget if it was a scale or what, but it was basically a sort of instant attraction and also fear to a new technology thing. Yeah. And then as we learn more about it, it kind of plateaus and people get less afraid, or they embrace it more, or they figure out how it works in their day-to-day life. I mean, you look at news reports about the internet in the 90s, people are, what is all this? I don't need this. What's an email? And then, eventually no one is living without it these days. So do you kind of see that with AI, as it'll kind of be intertwined in our lives for the foreseeable future?
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you. So after I asked Uli Koppen that question, what would you write above every doorway in your organization? I thought, as you start to share this anecdote with people, they're going to ask you what you would write above the door, so you better think about it. And I had time to think about it. Unlike Uli, I put her on the spot, but I know what I would write, and it would be, "Don't be afraid."
That's where I thought that first anecdote was going.
Oh, okay. All right. No, I love Do Better journalism. I think that's fantastic, but don't be afraid. And actually, you can put that above a doorway pretty much wherever you work, because I think it applies to still a lot of people, I think, and who. And it's natural, isn't it? It's not strange. It's a natural human reaction, particularly to something that we may not know a lot about. We do tend to fear it, and we read stories maybe in the media about AI doing things that it shouldn't, and hallucinations or whatever it might be, and it feeds into this. But it's like I said, and why I think the work we're doing right now around just AI literacy for media is so important, to help audiences get a balanced information about AI, because yes, there are risks, yes, there are challenges, yes, things go wrong, but there are also some incredible opportunities. That example I showed you from RTVE in Spain, I mean, that hasn't gone out to audiences yet. That's still piloting sort of in their laboratory, as it were. But if it goes ahead and if it works and is successful, they talk about stage 2, meaning maybe they could create news for different audiences that maybe find it challenging to access reliable news information at the moment. So people with dementia, for example, or neurodiverse audiences. So I do think we need a balanced view around AI, because it can bring some incredible benefits to our society, but at the same time guarding against some of those risks as well.
I think that fear that you mentioned has been there since the printing press. You know,
Yeah.
every time there is a new technology, someone thinks it's going to save the world and someone thinks it's going to destroy the world. And then we all reach that equilibrium. So I think that the anxiety that you're hearing is nothing new.
Yeah.
But
And I think, yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Monica, carry on.
Oh no, when you mentioned you've been seeing more AI generated images and content on social media, what I thought was interesting, and I found that it upset me, was very few, if any, of the comments on these beautiful pictures said anything about like, oh, this is obviously AI. And again, they could be bot comments, it could be, just their own thing. They want to generate more clicks and likes and shares and things. But I was trying to figure out why it bothered me that no other human was identifying. You can say it's a nice image, but it's AI. It's not human generated. And I don't know why this made me so upset. It was like humans were slowly fading into the creative distance and AI was clearly superior to what we could think of. But again, that transparency was never labeled as AI.
Yeah.
And I think it could be easily. People still appreciate it, but it was just interesting to see that many people didn't care or didn't identify it as AI. And I thought that might be a little dangerous too.
I think so. The images that I've seen, and I don't know about you can tell me, but a lot of the images that I've seen are beautiful wildlife pictures. Incredible, birds in myriad of colors that instantly grab your attention, and actually they're beautiful. So it's quite emotional. And I think, in my experience anyway, a lot of that Gen AI created content that I've seen being sent by non-media people is very emotive. So I think, it's not, critical thinking isn't the automatic reaction when I think some people see something that's just, it's just beautiful. I've never seen anything like that before. It's just breathtaking. But it may change over time when people, more and more people understand actually how easy it is to create a great image like that. Maybe we'll see more, and the balance may tip where more people do instantly sort of think it's beautiful, but it's not real.
Right. And that's okay too. I mean, you don't go to the Louvre and go, well, none of this is real, so it doesn't matter. Of course not, right?
Well, it still has value.
Right.
But it's good to know that it's not real, clearly.
Right. And that's that distinction for sure.
Yeah.
Michelle, did you have anything to add on that? I thought you had mentioned something earlier about seeing AI images that were kind of being snuck in and not being transparent about the use of AI. If that was you, I don't remember. I think it was you.
I mean, I've certainly seen that. I don't think that was me saying that.
I'll tell you another use of, so moving away from images, another interesting use of AI, which you can have a view on whether you think it's right or wrong, is around voice cloning. Okay, so where artificial intelligence can take somebody's voice and can make them say something that they didn't say for real, So to give you an example of this, actually it's from Spain again, funnily enough. RTVE are getting a lot of mentions today, but they're doing some inspiring work. There's the event in Spain where bulls are set free to run through a street, in Pamplona, right? So it's something that happens every year and is known globally. And the writer Ernest Hemingway wrote a famous piece about this. And I think it was a certain anniversary around the festival, so they were planning coverage. And somebody had the idea of, could we take this piece from Ernest Hemingway? And there's no recording of him reading it. And could we use AI to clone his voice so he reads the piece? So you can have an ethical decision whether that would be the right thing to do or not. What RTVE did, which I think is the right thing to do, is to speak to the people that would have the strongest opinion on this, which is Ernest Hemingway's family. And Ernest Hemingway's family thought this was a good idea. They supported it. It's something they would want to happen. So RTVE worked with Ernest Hemingway's family to take his voice and for him to read his words that he wrote. And that's the other important thing here as well, isn't it? In terms of voice cloning, and created this piece of content. So in terms of educating our audiences about how AI is influencing what they see, but also what they hear, it's audio, it's video, it's still images, it's the myriad of content, and the technology is there right now, and is being used, by organizations like RTVE. So some really interesting creative opportunities. But even in that one example there about Ernest Hemingway, some ethical questions as well, in terms of whether that was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do.
Right. And that was, before we started, I mentioned that In-Flight magazine that had a cover that was a beautiful painting. It looked like a painting. And on the inside of that cover, it did explicitly state, it was created based on inspiration from this particular artist, particular painter. It also said that it was not approved or sanctioned by the estate or the foundation that kind of governs that painter's work. So I think that was important too, that maybe they did seek approval, maybe they didn't, but either way, they said it's not approved. And that I think was kind of a brave thing to do, because you could have had a lot of backlash saying, this isn't that painter. Why are you, making new paintings that look like this painter?
Yeah.
So that transparency was a good
exactly
thing.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Monica. I mean, I haven't seen this, but you're right. It's transparency again. This is AI generated, and it's not approved by. So whoever sees that, like yourself, you're absolutely clear on what you're seeing there, and then you can make your own decisions on that piece of work based on that information.
Right. And that's the point of media literacy too. Media literacy is not there to tell you the good media versus the bad media, or what to think, what not to think. It's empowering you to use your critical thinking skills to make up your own mind about your own opinions and the course of action you should take about something. So that's the beauty of it, is it's just another kind of additional skill to have in navigating this kind of quickly changing world, especially with AI, because we don't know all the applications. We don't know where we're going to be in 5 to 10 years. But that brings me to my next question of where do you, I mean, this is you could say anything and it could come true, but where do you see AI going, especially in the media industry, in the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, given the rate of growth, it could be astronomical, but what do you think?
It's hard for me to tell you what will be happening a year from now, let alone 5 to 10 years. No, it's the same question, Monica, that I ask people that are working with AI every day. So far, no one has answered the question. And it comes back to the point that you made at the start of our discussion. Things are moving so quickly. Technology is developing so rapidly. Organizations are creatively applying these tools in new ways. There is emerging best practice. There is a lot of learning by doing. That means it's incredibly exciting, but it also means it's really hard to predict what will be happening in 12 months, 5 years, 10 years from now. I mean, what we're trying to do at the School of AI is I think our mission will change over time, but right now it's about ensuring that as many people as possible have that really good, solid foundation of AI literacy, and then equipping them with today's skills to be able to start to experiment with the tools that are out there. But yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge for us in creating what is, I think, an ever-moving curriculum of training. So the one thing for sure in the next 5 to 10 years is that it's going to be a ride. It's going to be an adventure. What I hope it means, and sort of connect this to a point we made earlier from a public media point of view, is that I hope it means that we can surprise and delight and inform audiences more impactfully than maybe we ever have before. Being more inclusive as a public media, reaching difficult to reach audiences, helping them understand our ever more complicated world, and delighting them with with really creative content. That's where I hope we are in 5 to 10 years, where we can say, look at what we've done with these AI tools, look at where we are.
Part of where media literacy really plays a role in all of this is basic critical thinking skills apply to anything, because the one constant will be change.
Yeah.
And having that solid foundation of skills and abilities and knowing the right questions to ask as our world changes, that is a foundation that can always be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I hear stories from our members who I think are doing really great work in helping the next generation develop these critical thinking skills, which, as you say, are going to be something that we as humans increasingly need to navigate our world. So in Czechia, Czech Radio is going out into schools. It's opening up conversations with young people about AI. It's helping their young AI literacy, and yeah, starting to support their critical thinking. And I think, whether it's within schools, whether it's with the support of public media, with organizations like yours, this is a combined sort of mission, isn't it, to help the next generation develop these critical thinking skills.
Exactly.
For sure. Well, I think those are about all the questions that I had. Michelle, any others burning questions that we can ask? Well,
Justin's presentation has been very thorough. The topic is something I could talk about all day, but our podcast is an hour. So.
Yes. So yes, thank you so much, Justin Kings, for all this enlightening discussion. And I know I, for one, am going to log off and go explore a little bit more about what you've talked about, just from a media literacy perspective, a journalistic perspective. There's a lot. It just feels really exciting. I mean, there's a lot of fear in excitement as well, but the excitement of we're living in a time where we get to be a part of something new that's going to grow with us. And I think that's how often do people get to say that? I mean, we said that with the internet too, but now we're used to that. So now it's AI and how we're going to grow with that, and how the field of education is going to grow with that, how the medical industry, how journalism is going to grow with that. Yeah. It'll be very interesting to see.
I agree. I think exciting times. The hour went really quickly, and thank you again for the invitation to spend some time with you today. It's been a really interesting conversation, so thank you.
Thank you.